friends! Today I'm going to do my Reading Rush 2019 wrap-up. Can we first off just give like a big round of applause for me actually sitting here today filming a wrap-up? I'm like, oh my god, all I want to do is sleep, but we're here. We're doing this. I just really wanted to make sure that I have a separate wrap-up for the Reading Rush because I have read quite a lot overall this month. And you know, in that case, I like to do 2 wrap-ups anyway. And so obviously, because there was a readathon going on, it is just perfect to do it like this. I read 8 things overall during the Reading Rush. I was able to get all of the challenges, all of the badges, and I read 2,034 pages. And like my goal is always to get to 2,100 pages, so an average of 300 pages a day, and like that is so close. That's good enough for me. I am really happy and just really love this week overall. I had such a good time vlogging. I genuinely did some of my favorite vlogs this week, and there's a couple that I'm just really proud of. But yeah, today I'm just here to talk about everything that I have read this week, and I hope I can pull this off. I'm a little bit like, I haven't really had time to really process all of these books, but we'll see. Maybe we can process together. So the first thing that I read was A Little Light Mischief by Cat Sebastian. I just am right now already losing my mind because I'm like, that felt like forever ago, but it was literally a week ago. This is a romance novella and it has a female romance, and it is actually part of a series by Cat Sebastian, but you do not have to read any of the other books. I did have a little bit of issues just kind of understanding, just like because you have no context at all. You've never heard any of these names or anything, so I was a little bit lost in the beginning, but it was totally fine. This was just really short and sweet, super wholesome. I have issues, you will see this in the rest of it, I just have issues with novellas because it's just like I can't really get attached to the characters. And you know that for me when I read, a lot of why I love books is just because I feel emotionally attached, and so I just have a hard time doing that when I read a novella and I have so little time to get to know the characters. But this was just really well done. I really loved it. If you are looking for a female historical romance, I would definitely absolutely recommend it. This also had like this tiny revenge plot against men that have basically just treated our main characters like shit in the past, which is one of my favorite things. And I also love the character development. I think considering that this is only a novella, the character development was really great. So overall, again, would absolutely recommend it, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I finished Things No One Will Tell Fat Girls by Jess Baker. This is an audiobook, and I actually only had like half or so to go of the book, so like this didn't count for any of the challenges or anything like that, but I still finished it during the week, so I'm going to talk about it here. This is a non-fiction book, and it just talks a lot about body positivity, body acceptance, and it was just really good. It was a really informative read. Definitely not like groundbreaking. Like if you have read stuff about body positivity before, if you just know about like being inclusive and stuff like that when it comes to plus size bodies, then it is not really a lot of like new information, but it was still really good. And I think that it's always just good and important to support these kinds of books as well. And what I really loved is that Jess Baker made sure to include voices that are outside of her own identity and let them speak when it comes to gender and sexuality, when it comes to being a person of color. And that is something that I really enjoy. Like, your book has to be inclusive. And if you're a plus size white person, then you need to look at the experience of plus size people of color. If you're a straight person, then you need to look at queer plus size people. If you're cis, you need to look at trans plus size people. And the fact that she not only did that, but also included just essays and stuff like that from people who are these identities, I just thought that really showed that she really cared about being inclusive, and that's just a huge plus point for me. This is definitely a little bit on the self-help side as well. Like, you learn a lot, and it is definitely for straight size people as well, but if you are struggling or you just kind of want to really get into body positivity as a plus size person, this is definitely a little bit like self-help as well. So yeah, overall really, really liked it and think it's just a really important read, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Always Never Yours by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. This is a YA contemporary that I had actually already started before the reading rush, because this is one that was on my Buzzwordathon TBR, but Buzzwordathon did not go well for me, and so this ended up just being on my shelf the whole time, like 50 pages into it, and I was like, okay, let's use the opportunity to read this during reading rush, and oh my god, I love this so much. This is such a fantastic YA contemporary. It has Shakespeare elements in there. The main character is in Romeo and Juliet. She is Juliet, and that's obviously something that I really like. I like everything that has to do with acting, but it's funny, like somehow I don't love every Shakespeare play, but I myself have done a lot of Shakespeare stuff. And so when books have acting and on top of that have Shakespeare, that just always makes me so happy, and I just feel very satisfied by that, especially when I kind of know the material. My favorite thing about this book was that it was just so messy. There were so many messy elements in there. The characters were doing so many messy things, so many flaws, and honestly there were things in there that in other books could have definitely been something where I would have been like, oh, I just think this is like a questionable thing to put in your book. The way it was done in this one was just incredibly well done, and so I love that. And honestly, I just thought that the way these authors wrote these characters and in general just the storyline, that's not something that many authors can pull off, and that's also not something that a lot of authors would be like brave enough to do. It starts already with the main character kind of being someone who just has been with a lot of people, who is very much into just like having like casual romantic encounters, and she's just like happy with that, and like that's already something that is so uncommon in YA, and like I was already like, okay, this is some good shit. I do have to say, I think at the end there was a little bit like I wish they would have made it a little bit clearer that just because like, oh, she's like actually in love now, and you know, she has these really intense romantic feelings, that doesn't mean that how she has been living her life before was like wrong. I just wish it had been made a little bit clearer that like you can just have casual relationships and casual makeouts and I don't even fucking know what, like it doesn't matter, and you're not like wrong for like not wanting to fall in love, or you are not wrong for just not finding that person that you fall in love with but still pursuing relationships just because you just like to be with people. You know what I mean? Like I wish it had put a little bit more emphasis on that's totally okay. But yeah, that's just something that I kind of noticed, but overall just so very good. I love the romance. It was really well done, so beautiful, and really love the development, and overall this is just such a fantastic YA contemporary. I really loved it, highly recommend it, and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Playing House by Ruby Lang. This is a adult romance novella that I got off NetGalley, and when I requested it, I didn't know that it was a novella. I probably would not have requested it if I had known. Thankfully, I found out before I actually started reading it. But yeah, I kind of had similar issues that I already mentioned with A Little Like Mischief. I just have a hard time really getting attached to characters if it's just a novella. I had a lot of fun reading this. I thought that the characters were really charming, but I just cannot give something like this more than 3 stars just because it is a novella. I definitely think that they were trying to be a little bit like, this is fake dating, like, or like a fake relationship. It's not really that. They really kind of start being in a physical relationship at least pretty quickly. So if you're looking for like a fake relationship trope, this is not really like the book I would say to go to, but it was enjoyable and that is good enough for me, and both of the main characters are Chinese American. Next, I read Mooncakes by Susan Walker and Wendy Xu. This is a graphic novel that comes out in October and I got it off NetGalley. It is read now if you're interested, and this was so beautiful, so absolutely wonderful. This has a female non-binary romance, and the female main character is hard of hearing. She wears hearing aids, and both of the main characters are Chinese American. And this was just beautiful. I love the art. I think it fits so well to the story. I love the story. I love the characters, and I just found it so adorable overall. I think this is really just your perfect, like, adorable, kind of fluffy Halloween read. It definitely made me emotional. well, and the diversity was just incredibly well done. Like, I think it's so important when you have a story where there's like a villain, that villain still respects the non-binary person's pronouns. I mean, everybody's pronouns, but obviously, like, you know, that is particularly important in that case. I said this in my vlog, if your villain relies on misgendering someone to be an evil person, like, your villain is probably not that well written. I also loved the main character's grandmas. They were so cute, so lovely, and that was another instance where it was also kind of shown that, like, older generations also can just easily respect pronouns. Like, it was literally like the grandma said like something blah blah she, and then the character was like, oh, I actually go by they now, and they were like, oh, sorry, okay, and switched to they for the rest of the story. Like, that is literally how fucking easy it is. It is really not that big of a deal. Same with the rep of the hard of hearing characters. Like, obviously I cannot speak for those identities. I can just say, as an outside person, I think it was really well done. The hearing aids would like constantly be shown. Like, sometimes it would be her like taking them out, or you would always just see them when she had like her hair behind her ears. You would always see the hearing aids, and I just love that. It was just so fantastic, and it made me so happy. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know, I feel like maybe if I had like a physical copy, maybe I would have given it 5 stars. I don't know, I just know that I love it. Then I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I buddy read this with Melanie, who is the light of my life, but was especially during this week. I had so much fun. Like, honestly, this was for me like the first reading rush where I just had like someone that I'm close with. And I don't know, that just made it all the more special. And like, if you haven't seen my vlogs, Melanie and me also watched City of Wands together, and I just had such a good time, and Melanie is one of the big reasons as to why I had such a great time. Anyway, not getting sappy. We buddy read this together. This is just a short science fiction novella. This just wasn't really for me. I have to say that I think I definitely didn't read this on the perfect day, because it was, when was it? I think it was Friday, and it was like the final day of this heat wave that we had, and I was at a point where I could no longer take it. I was just so done with just sweating and being hot. I think that reading a science fiction novella was probably not the best for me on that day, because I definitely know that I had a little bit of issues just really processing the story, but I think generally this is just not really the story for me. I thought that it was fine, and I totally understand why people love this, but again, it is a novella, which I obviously kind of have issues with anyway, and then on top of that, it is science fiction, which at this point has very much become something that is almost out of my comfort zone, and so I just think that a lot of things didn't really work together for me to like really love this. But again, I so understand why people love this, and I still definitely would recommend this if you're interested in it. Like, just the fact that there is this main character that's called Murderbot, who is actually kind of just really adorable and just really funny, like that in and of itself, like I wish I could have loved this. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, which is obviously not a bad rating, but it's just that I so understand why so many people just gave it 4 or 5 stars, and I'm like, I wish I could have just loved it like that as well. Then I read The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. This is, at this point, honestly, like a historical fiction, I would say, because, and I wasn't aware of this takes place at the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s, and so I do think at this point you can say that that is historical fiction, and like things are just different. Like, for me, this is not a contemporary, even though it obviously has still a lot of like contemporary themes, but there is a difference between books being set today and books being set in the 90s. But this was such an impactful, powerful read, and this is definitely the biggest book where I still haven't really processed all of my thoughts and feelings about it. I just think that this is a book that is so well done in so many aspects when it comes to just being queer and the queer experience and growing up queer and like realizing you are queer like really early on. And it really showed what it means to like grow up in a conservative like state in the US with a religious family. I trust Emily Danforth that she knows what she's talking about. Obviously, I cannot really speak for if this is how it actually is for people, but I do trust that that is how it is for a lot of people. But I can only say that as an outsider, I just felt like it was very easy to like understand the circumstances and to understand the things that were happening and going on around her and why she was the way that she was. She very much felt embarrassed and ashamed of her own queerness in the beginning, and that was just something that already just, even apart from the conversion therapy that comes into play later on, that was already so hard to read about, but just made so much sense, like knowing where she's coming from, knowing where she's living, and just what happens to her in her life. I just really think that was such a strong element. And then I love that when she actually gets to the conversion therapy, it is more like she becomes this more out person and this prouder person. And I think that made it kind of easier to read the conversion therapy than you would maybe expect. Obviously, still tons and tons of triggers for this book. There is so much going on. There's like self-harm involved and like suicidal thoughts. There's just a lot of stuff in there. Her parents die, so that's obviously a lot. And the whole conversion therapy thing, and just like internalized homophobia, so much in there. But I think, considering that this is a book about conversion therapy, that it was still done in a way that didn't like hurt that much. And the way Cameron dealt with the conversion therapy was just really like chill, and she was just kind of acting so that she would like get through the things. But then we would see other people and how they dealt with it differently, how they either completely went for all of this or how they like couldn't deal with it. Just so many different experiences. But I'm just glad that we didn't have to like firsthand read someone who like just actually hated themselves the whole time and was trying so hard to change themselves. I think just the way this book was built and done was just incredibly well done. There is a certain craft and there is a certain intelligence that you have to write this book the way that it was, a certain respect almost. And I think that Emily M. Danforth was just really able to pull all that off. And this is really incredible if you can handle these topics. And I think especially actually if you are outside of the US and you want to really understand where some queer people grow up and how they grow up and how they feel about their queerness, I think that this is definitely a read that I think this is like almost like a mandatory queer book. Like if you are generally into queer fiction, be it if you're queer yourself or if you're not, I think if you can handle it, this is a must read. It is no coincidence that this has won several awards and so many people have been talking about it for years. It is incredible. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It broke me. Oof. And finally, during the reading rush, I read Are You Listening by Tilly Walden. This is a graphic novel. It comes out in September, and this is one of the arcs that Melanie sent me from BEA and BookCon, and I enjoyed this so much. This is another one that was really hard-hitting, but also just really beautiful. I absolutely love the art. I cannot wait to see this in full color, because in an arc there's only the first couple of pages in color, but just from these first couple of pages I was already so hooked, and the art is beautiful even in black and white, so that alone already made me really fall in love with this one. But then I also really love the story. This is about an 18-year-old girl and a 27-year-old girl, and they are kind of going on a road trip together. They are both gay. Just the way that they talk about that, they bond over that, but then also just the general storyline, and it has fabulous elements in there, which I didn't know going into this. So at one point when something happened, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like I literally didn't understand what was going on, because I didn't realize that this was gonna have some fabulous elements in there. But once I really understood, I loved it, and I think it was so well done. Trigger warnings in this one for rape and loss of a parent, but everything about this was just so very well done. I loved how in certain scenes the art style would all of a sudden get messier because a character was just talking about something in a really emotional way. That just still, I mean, I read this yesterday, that just still kind of has me a little bit choked up. This was just one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, this is why I love graphic novels, because there's just a certain way how you can portray a story and tell a story that you cannot do with just like a normal book. And I just love that. This was just fantastic, did so many things right. And I really just hope that a lot of people will pick it up when it comes out, because it deserves all of the hype. And I cannot wait to pick up a finished copy to see this whole graphic novel in color. I gave it 4 stars for now. I think it's going to be one of those books that will not really just leave me alone, and so then I will eventually change my rating to 5 stars. For now I give it 4, but again, I also think once I have a finished copy with full color, I think I will absolutely give it 5 stars. This was beautiful, wonderful, amazing, intense. Loved it. So yeah, that was everything that I read during the reading rush. My battery's flashing, so I'm gonna make this quick. And also, honestly, I'm kind of just sick of filming my face after a whole week of daily vlogging. But I just really hope that you had a great week. If you participated in the reading rush, let me know how you did, if you're happy with your progress. And I did actually just run out of battery literally 5 seconds before being done with filming. But I make new videos every Wednesday and Sunday with occasional reviews on Friday. So click subscribe to never miss anything and hit the little bell so you get notified as well. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye!